Let me ask you a question that might sting a little, but it's a question you need to face honestly. How much energy have you wasted trying to prove that you matter to people who don't even care? Really think about it. Think about how many hours you've lost sitting with your phone in your hand, rewriting a caption again and again, hoping it sounds impressive enough. Think about how many times you've sat at a table explaining your big plans, watching faces nod politely while you wait for approval, validation, that small hit of dopamine that makes you feel accomplished before you've actually done anything. We live in a world that constantly tells you to broadcast your life. Share your wins, share your grind, share your struggles, share what you're about to do before you've even taken the first step. And it sounds harmless, it sounds motivational. But here is the brutal truth that most people never say out loud. Talking about the work feels easier than doing the work. Announcing your plans feels productive because applause imitates progress. Likes, comments, and encouragement create the illusion that you are moving forward even when you are standing completely still. Applause is not success. Applause is a drug. And just like any drug, it gives you a temporary high while quietly weakening you underneath. Every time you open your mouth to seek validation for a dream that hasn't been built yet, you leak the very energy you need to make it real. You give away your power in exchange for attention, and attention is cheap. There is actual science behind why this keeps you stuck. When you tell people, I'm going to start that business, I'm going to lose the weight, I'm going to change my life, in 2026, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical that fires when you actually achieve something. Your mind gets tricked. It rewards you early. It makes you feel like you've already made progress even though nothing has changed. You feel productive without producing. You feel successful without sacrifice. You get the emotional reward without paying the physical, mental, or emotional cost. And so you stay where you are, high on the fumes of a fantasy, comfortable in the idea of who you could be, while the real work sits untouched in the dark. Then when the noise dies down, when the messages stop coming, when the room goes quiet, that empty feeling shows up. That deep, uncomfortable emptiness you can't explain. Because deep down, you know the truth. You traded execution for attention. You chose to be seen instead of being built. This is why you feel stuck. This is why momentum never comes. This is why you keep starting over every year with the same promises and the same results. You haven't failed because you're incapable. You failed because you've been leaking power. And now 2026 demands something different from you. Not a new slogan, not a new post, not another announcement. Real change. The kind of change that actually alters your life. And that kind of change requires something most people are terrified of. It requires silence. It requires disappearing. It requires working without witnesses. The most powerful move you will ever make is the one nobody sees coming. Real power doesn't scream. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't need to be explained or documented. It moves quietly and lets the results speak later. Think about how anything real grows. A seed doesn't make noise when it splits open underground. Roots don't demand applause while forcing their way through rock and dirt. All real strength is built where no one is watching, in darkness, in pressure, in isolation. That unseen work is what allows something to stand tall when the storm comes. You are that seed, but instead of letting yourself grow, you keep digging yourself up to check if anything has changed. You keep exposing your roots to public opinion before they've had a chance to take hold. You want reassurance too early. You want proof before the process is complete. And then you wonder why nothing lasts. If you want 2026 to be different, you have to stop performing and start building. You have to stop talking and start working. You have to accept that silence is not punishment. Silence is preparation. There is a deeper reason why this pattern keeps repeating in your life, and it has nothing to do with laziness or lack of talent. It comes down to how your brain is wired and how easily it can be fooled. Your mind is designed to reward progress, but it doesn't always know the difference between real progress and imagined progress. When you talk about what you're going to do instead of actually doing it, your brain still reacts as if something meaningful has happened. That's the trap. Every time you announce a goal out loud, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical that fires when you complete a task, win a competition, or achieve something real. That dopamine hit feels good. It gives you a sense of momentum. It makes you feel productive, motivated and confident. But here's the danger. That chemical reward was supposed to come at the end of the journey, not the beginning. You took the reward without earning it. So what happens next is subtle but destructive. Because you already feel good, the urgency disappears. The hunger fades. The pressure to act weakens. Your mind thinks, we've already made progress. Even though nothing has changed in your external reality. No habits were built. No skills were developed. No sacrifices were made. You're still standing in the same place, but now you're tired because you spent energy talking instead of moving. This is why so many people are addicted to planning, talking, and announcing. It gives them the emotional payoff without the discomfort. It lets them feel successful without being disciplined. And over time, this trains the brain to prefer fantasy over effort. You start to fall in love with the idea of becoming someone instead of doing what it takes to actually become them. That's why you see people constantly restarting. New year, new goals, new motivation, new promises. But the pattern never changes. Big talk followed by small action. Excitement followed by exhaustion. Hope followed by disappointment. Not because they aren't capable, but because they've taught their brain that talking is enough. And then comes the emptiness. When the likes slow down. When the encouragement fades. When nobody asks you about that plan anymore, that's when reality hits. Because deep down, you know you didn't move. You know you didn't pay the price. You know the life you described still doesn't exist. That awareness creates frustration, self-doubt, and sometimes shame. So what do most people do? They talk again. They announce a new plan. They chase another hit of validation to cover the discomfort of inaction. This cycle is why so many people feel busy but unfulfilled. They are mentally exhausted but physically unchanged, emotionally drained but materially stuck. They confuse noise with motion. They confuse attention with achievement. And slowly, without realizing it, they lose trust in themselves. Because every promise they make out loud but don't keep becomes another quiet betrayal of their own word. And once you stop trusting yourself, everything becomes harder. Discipline feels heavier. Consistency feels impossible. Confidence turns into insecurity, not because you're broken, but because your internal reputation has been damaged. You've heard yourself promise too many times without delivering. This is why silence is so powerful. Silence removes the false reward. When you stop talking, your brain doesn't get the dopamine shortcut. The only way to feel good again is to actually do the work. To earn the reward properly, through effort, through repetition, through discomfort. Silence forces honesty between you and yourself. And this is also why progress made in silence feels different. It's quieter, but it's solid. There's no performance, no audience, no safety net of encouragement. Just you, your standards, and the work. And when progress finally happens, it hits deeper. It lasts longer because it was earned, not imagined. If you want to break out of stagnation in 2026, you have to starve the habit of premature celebration. You have to stop feeding your brain empty rewards. You have to delay gratification long enough for real change to take root. That means fewer announcements, fewer explanations, fewer promises made out loud, and more execution when no one is watching. Because real momentum doesn't come from talking about the future. It comes from stacking small, boring, disciplined actions in the present. And once you feel that kind of progress, you won't need validation anymore. You won't crave applause. You'll be too busy becoming someone your past self wouldn't recognize. Silence is uncomfortable because it removes all the masks. When you stop talking, stop posting, stop announcing, there is nothing left to hide behind. No reactions to lean on, no applause to soften the pressure. Just you and the reality of what you are doing with your life. And that discomfort is exactly why silence is powerful. Most people can't tolerate it long enough to grow inside it. The moment you decide to work quietly, something strange happens. The world doesn't clap. Nobody asks questions. Nobody checks on you. And for the first time, you realize how much of your motivation was tied to being seen. Silence exposes whether your drive is real or borrowed. If you need an audience to move, you don't want success, you want attention. And attention has never built anything meaningful. Real power operates differently. It doesn't announce. It doesn't rush to be understood. It moves patiently, deliberately, without permission. Think about how strength actually forms. Muscles grow under resistance, not comfort. Roots grow downward before anything rises upward. Nothing strong starts loud. Everything solid begins hidden. When you move in silence, you stop giving people access to your unfinished work. You stop letting opinions interfere with momentum. You stop inviting doubt into a process that already demands enough energy on its own. Most people don't sabotage you intentionally. They do it accidentally, through careless comments, through fear disguised as concern, through advice rooted in their own limitations. Silence protects you from all of that. And there is another layer to this. When people know your next move, they unconsciously adjust how they treat you. They watch, they judge, they compare. They wait for you to fail or succeed so they can place you in a category that makes sense to them. But when you move quietly, you deny them that comfort. You become unpredictable. And unpredictability creates respect. People fear what they cannot track. They respect what they cannot anticipate. When everyone is loud, the quiet person stands out. When everyone is explaining, the one who says nothing controls the room. Silence creates mystery, and mystery creates authority. But silence isn't just about others. It's about you. When you stop talking, you start listening. You hear your own thoughts clearly. You notice patterns you were too distracted to see before. You recognize excuses you've been hiding from. You can no longer blame the noise, the people, or the timing. Silence forces accountability. This is why so many people avoid it. They fill every gap with sound. Music, podcasts, scrolling, conversations, drama, anything to avoid sitting alone with themselves. Because when everything goes quiet, the truth gets out. And the truth demands action. Silence also slows you down in the right way. It removes impulsive reactions. It keeps you from oversharing emotions that should be processed privately. It stops you from saying things you'll later regret. It creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space, you gain control. In a world where everyone reacts instantly, the person who pauses has the advantage. While others argue, you observe. While others defend, you plan. While others seek validation, you build. Silence turns patience into a weapon. And here's the part most people don't understand. Silence doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous. Because when you don't advertise your struggles, people underestimate you. When you don't broadcast your growth, they don't see you coming. They assume you're the same. They assume nothing has changed. And then one day, the results appear and they can't explain how it happened. That's real power. Quiet progress. Unseen discipline, private victories stacking day after day. Silence also teaches you to rely on internal standards instead of external approval. You stop asking, does this look good? And start asking, is this right? You stop performing and start becoming. Once you reach that point, you no longer need to prove anything. You know who you are because you've built it in the dark. This is why silence feels lonely at first, because you are removing familiar distractions. You are stepping away from the crowd. You are choosing solitude over stimulation. But solitude is not emptiness. It is space. Space to grow, space to think, space to become someone stronger than the version of you that needed to be seen. Silence is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of focus. And when focus is sustained long enough, it turns into momentum, and momentum, when protected, turns into transformation. Not everyone deserves access to your vision, and this is one of the hardest truths to accept. You assume that the people around you want the best for you, that they will support your growth, that they will understand your ambition. But most people don't see the world through your eyes. They see it through the limits of their own fears, experiences, and disappointments. When you share something big with someone who thinks small, they don't see possibility. They see risk. They don't hear opportunity. They hear danger. This is why the moment you start talking about change, you hear the same phrases over and over again. Be realistic. That's too risky. What if it doesn't work? It sounds like concern, but most of the time it's projection. Your desire to rise forces them to confront the fact that they chose comfort. Your ambition reminds them of the chances they didn't take. And instead of dealing with that discomfort, they try to shrink your dream to a size that feels safe to them. They are not evil. They are not plotting against you. They are simply protecting their own worldview. If you sow seed, it exposes their excuses. If you grow, it highlights their stagnation. So they try to keep you where you are, not because they hate you, but because your evolution threatens their identity. This is why you have to learn to close access. You don't owe everyone a front row seat to your process. You don't owe anyone a detailed explanation of where you're going or how you plan to get there. That information is not harmless. Every opinion you invite becomes another weight you have to carry. Every doubt you hear becomes another voice you have to silence later. Over-explaining is one of the most subtle ways people sabotage themselves. It looks polite. It looks mature. But in reality, it comes from insecurity. It comes from the need to be understood, approved of, accepted. And the more you explain, the more power you give away. You hand control of your direction to people who aren't walking your path. You don't need permission to grow. You don't need consensus to change your life. You don't need understanding to move forward. The moment you stop explaining yourself, something shifts internally. You stop negotiating with the world and you start committing to yourself. Your journey is yours. The long nights when nobody sees the effort. Yours. The early mornings when your body wants comfort, but your goals demand discipline. Yours. The failures that humble you. The setbacks that test you. The moments when quitting feels easier than continuing. All of that belongs to you. And when too many people are involved, that ownership gets diluted. Silence draws a boundary without conflict. You don't need to argue. You don't need to convince. You simply stop offering information. And when you do that, you'll notice something interesting. Some people will drift away. Some will get uncomfortable. Some will accuse you of changing. Let them. Growth always costs relationships that were built on access, convenience, or usefulness. When you limit access, you also protect momentum. You stop absorbing unnecessary opinions. You stop reacting emotionally to casual remarks. You stop adjusting your pace to match other people's expectations. You move at the speed required for your own development. And here's the uncomfortable part. You will be misunderstood. People will fill the silence with their own stories about you. They will assume things. They will label you distant, arrogant, selfish, cold. That's the price of boundaries. But clarity does not come from explaining. It comes from consistency. Over time, your actions will speak louder than any justification ever could. There is a quiet confidence that forms when you stop defending yourself. You no longer feel the urge to correct every misunderstanding. You no longer chase validation. You know where you're going. And that knowledge stabilizes you. You stop wasting energy on people who were never meant to walk with you long term. Limiting access also teaches you discernment. You become intentional about who gets what. Our time, your thoughts, your energy. You realize that being available to everyone makes you valuable to no one, including yourself. Your worth is not measured by how much you give away, but by what you protect. This is how you reclaim ownership of your life, not by being loud, not by convincing others, but by choosing silence, setting boundaries, and committing to your path without explanation. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop asking for permission. And when you stop asking for permission, you finally start moving forward. At some point, motivation stops being enough, and this is where most people fall apart. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls depending on mood, energy, and circumstances. Discipline, on the other hand, is structural. It doesn't care how you feel. It operates on standards, not emotions. And if you want real control over your life, you have to shift from chasing motivation to building discipline. This is where Stoic thinking becomes practical instead of philosophical. The idea is simple but uncomfortable. You do not control outcomes. You do not control how people react. You do not control whether you are praised or ignored. The only things you truly control are your judgments, your actions, and your character. Everything else is noise. The moment you stop trying to manage what is outside your control, you reclaim enormous amounts of energy. Think about how much mental, Space you waste worrying about opinions, comments, comparisons, and outcomes you can't force. Every one of those worries is a drain. It pulls focus away from the only place where progress can actually happen. When you attach your happiness to things you cannot command, you hand your peace to strangers, and strangers are careless with what they're given. This is why emotional detachment is not coldness, it is freedom. It means you stop letting external events hijack your internal state. Someone disrespects you and you don't explode. Someone ignores you and you don't spiral. Someone criticizes you and you don't collapse. You observe, you decide, you respond only if it serves your direction. That space between what happens and how you react is where power lives. Discipline is built in that space. It's built when you choose the harder option repeatedly, not because it feels good, but because it aligns with who you are becoming. Being broke is hard. Being financially disciplined is hard. Choose your hard. Being out of shape is hard. Training consistently is hard. Choose your hard. Avoiding difficult conversations is hard. Living with resentment is hard. Choose your hard. There is no life without struggle. There is only the question of which struggle you accept. When you understand this, excuses lose their grip. You stop asking for life to be easier and start asking yourself to be stronger. You stop looking for shortcuts and start building capacity. Strength is not something you wish into existence. It is something you earn through resistance, repetition, and discomfort. This is also where consistency becomes more important than intensity. Anyone can push hard for a week. Anyone can feel inspired for a moment. But growth belongs to the person who shows up even when nothing is exciting, even when progress feels invisible, even when the work feels boring and repetitive. Especially then, the work that changes your life rarely feels heroic. It feels mundane. It feels ordinary. It feels like doing the same simple things over and over while trusting that they will compound. Most people quit here because there is no immediate reward, no applause, no recognition, just quiet effort. But this is exactly why it works. Because very few people are willing to stay disciplined when no one is watching. Stoic control also teaches you to conserve energy. Drama becomes expensive. Arguments become unnecessary. Explaining yourself becomes optional. You start treating your focus like a limited resource because it is. Every emotional reaction costs you something. Every distraction delays progress. So you become selective. You respond with intention instead of impulse. This doesn't make you passive. It makes you precise. You act when it matters. You stay silent when it doesn't. You learn that not every battle deserves your energy, and not every comment deserves a reply. Silence in this sense is not avoidance. It is strategy. Over time, this way of living changes how you see yourself. You begin to trust your word again because they make promises you intend to keep. You begin to respect yourself because your actions align with your standards. And self-respect is the foundation of confidence. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't need validation. When discipline replaces motivation, your life stabilizes. You are no longer at the mercy of mood or circumstance. You do what needs to be done because that's who you are now. And that identity, once formed, becomes unshakable. This is how you take back control. Not through force, not through aggression, but through calm, consistent, disciplined action. You stop reacting to the world and start shaping yourself. And once you master that, nothing external has the power to derail you. There comes a phase in your life where everything gets quiet, and if you don't understand what's happening, you'll think something has gone wrong. Friends stop calling. Invitations slow down. The noise fades, and it feels like you're being pushed into the background while everyone else moves forward. But this is not punishment. This is preparation. This is the dark room. In photography, an image is useless until it goes through the dark room. It has to sit in chemicals, in silence, away from light. If it's exposed too early, the entire picture is ruined. Nothing beautiful can survive premature exposure. Growth requires concealment, pressure, time. And the same is true for you. When life pulls you into isolation, it's not abandoning you. It's insulating you. It's removing distractions that were stealing your focus. It's stripping away people who had access to you, but no respect for your future. It's forcing you to sit with yourself long enough to hear your own voice instead of everyone else's opinions. Loneliness feels painful because you're used to stimulation. You're used to noise filling every gap, messages, notifications, background sounds. When that disappears, the silence feels heavy. What you're really feeling is unused potential rising to the surface. The discomfort isn't emptiness. It's pressure, and pressure, when handled correctly, creates strength. In the dark room, you begin to notice things you missed before, patterns in your behavior, cycles you keep repeating, excuses you've been hiding behind. There's no one to impress here, no one to perform for, just truth. And truth demands responsibility. This is also where perception sharpens. When you stop talking so much, you start seeing clearly. You read people better. You notice intentions instead of words. You see who is draining you and who is neutral. You understand that not everyone who smiles at you wants you to win, and that awareness makes you dangerous in a quiet way. Dangerous doesn't mean aggressive. It means prepared. It means you are no longer naive. You stop oversharing. You stop volunteering information. You stop reacting emotionally. You gather data while others give it away. And in a world where everyone is loud, the quiet observer always has the advantage. The dark room also builds patience. You stop expecting immediate results. You stop needing constant reassurance. You learn to trust the process even when nothing is visible yet. This is where most people quit, because they mistake invisibility for failure. But invisibility is often the final stage before emergence. While others are distracted by comparison, you are stacking days. While others are chasing validation, you are building capacity. While others are reacting, you are preparing, quietly, consistently, without witnesses. And because no one sees the effort, they underestimate you. They assume you're the same. They assume you've fallen behind. They assume nothing is happening. That's the advantage. When expectations are low, movement is unrestricted. You can grow without pressure. You can experiment without judgment. You can fail without embarrassment. The dark room also forces you to develop internal validation. There is no applause here, no encouragement, no one reminding you why you started. If you keep going, it's because you decided to, because you respect yourself enough to follow through even when no one is watching. That kind of self-trust changes how you carry yourself. Over time, something shifts. The silence no longer feels heavy. It feels focused. The solitude no longer feels lonely. It feels intentional. You begin to enjoy the quiet because it gives you clarity, it gives you control. It gives you distance from the chaos that consumes Eve, everyone else. And then one day, the results appear. Not all at once, not loudly, but clearly. Your habits are different. Your reactions are different. Your standards are higher. You move with calm instead of urgency, with direction instead of desperation. And people notice, not because you announced it, but because it's undeniable. That's when you understand the purpose of the dark room. It wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to build you into someone who doesn't need noise to feel powerful. Someone who doesn't need validation to feel secure. Someone who can stand alone without feeling lost. You were never buried. You were planted. And what grows in darkness, when done right, emerges unshakable. Eventually, everything comes down to a decision, and this is the part where there is no philosophy left to hide behind. No metaphors, no inspiration, just choice. You can understand all of this intellectually and still stay exactly where you are. Knowledge alone doesn't change a life. Action does. And action begins the moment you stop negotiating with yourself. The biggest lie you keep telling yourself is later. Later is comfortable. Later feels safe. Later gives you permission to delay responsibility. But later is also where dreams go to die. Tomorrow never shows up with motivation in its hand. It shows up demanding discipline. Every time you postpone action, you train your mind to believe your word doesn't matter. And when you don't trust yourself, nothing you build will last. This is why execution must be immediate, not perfect, immediate. You don't wait for ideal conditions. You don't wait to feel ready. You move now, even if the step is small, especially if it's small. Momentum is built through motion, not intention. Silence without action is just hiding. Silence paired with execution is transformation. Consistency is where most people quit because consistency is boring. There is no adrenaline in doing the same thing every day. No rush, no drama, just repetition. But repetition is where identity is formed. You don't become disciplined by deciding once. You become disciplined by choosing the same hard behavior again and again until it becomes who you are. You have to accept that nobody is coming to save you. No mentor will magically appear. No message will arrive at the perfect time. No external event will suddenly make things easier. This is not pessimism, it's freedom. The moment you stop waiting to be rescued, you take full ownership of your life. And ownership is power. You also have to let go of the need to be understood. Some people will never get it. Some people will misunderstand your silence. Some will assume you've fallen off. Let them. Clarity does not come from explanation. It comes from results. You don't correct every false narrative. You outgrow them. This path will require you to say no more often than yes. No to distractions, no to comfort, no to people who only show up when it benefits them. Every no you say external lie is a yes to your future. Boundaries are not walls, they are filters. They determine what gets access to your time, your energy, and your focus. There will be days when motivation is gone completely, days when the work feels pointless, days when quitting feels logical. This is where discipline proves whether it's real. Discipline is not motivation with better branding. It is obedience to a standard you set when you were thinking clearly. On those days, you don't ask how you feel. You ask what needs to be done, and you do it anyway. You must also be willing to be alone for a while, not lonely, but separate. Separate from habits that keep you average. Separate from environments that drain you. Separate from people who benefit from you staying the same. Solitude is not isolation, it is strategic withdrawal. It is where you sharpen the blade. As you move forward, stop measuring progress by applause. Measure it by alignment. Are your actions matching your values? Are your habits supporting the future you say you want? Are you keeping promises to yourself when no one is watching? That is the real scorecard. Over time, something powerful happens. You stop seeking permission. You stop craving validation. You stop explaining. You move with quiet certainty. Your confidence becomes calm. Your focus becomes narrow. Your energy becomes protected. And that combination makes you dangerous in the best possible way. 2026 does not need you to be loud. It needs you to be locked in. Focus, disciplined, relentless in private. Let others talk. Let others post. Let others announce. You build, move quietly, work consistently, protect your energy. And when the results arrive, you won't need to say a word. At the end of all of this, there is no dramatic moment where everything suddenly feels easy. There is just a quiet realization that you are no longer the person you used to be. You don't wake up one day feeling powerful. You wake up one day realizing you no longer need to prove anything. And that is when you know the work has been done correctly. This is where the path narrows. This is where excuses stop working. You cannot carry the old habits into the new life. You cannot demand a different future while protecting the same comforts. At some point, you have to draw a line and decide who you are willing to become, even if it costs you familiarity, approval, and comfort. Especially if it costs you those things, you will feel resistance here, internal resistance. The part of you that wants reassurance, praise, and recognition will start to panic. It will ask, what if nobody notices? It will ask, what if this effort is wasted? You have to understand something clearly. The work is not wasted just because it is unseen. The work is the point. The work is shaping you into someone capable of carrying what you say you want. This is where you stop waiting for confidence and start acting with commitment. Confidence is not something you wait to feel. It is something that forms after repeated action. Every time you do what you said you would do, especially when it's uncomfortable, you deposit trust into yourself. Over time, that trust compounds. And self-trust is stronger than motivation, stronger than encouragement, stronger than fear. There will be moments when you question the silence, moments when you feel disconnected from the world, moments when it feels like everyone else is moving faster, louder, easier. Do not fall for that illusion. Most people are not moving forward. They are moving in circles, talking, reacting, restarting, explaining. Progress looks quiet because it doesn't need attention to survive. You have to accept that this path is lonely by design, not because something is wrong with you, but because transformation requires separation. You cannot build a new identity while clinging to the environment that reinforced the old one. You will outgrow people. You will disappoint people. You will confuse people. That is not a sign to stop. That is a sign that something is changing. The final test is this. Can you keep going without applause? Can you stay disciplined when nobody is watching, when nobody is checking in, when nobody is reminding you why you started? Because that is where real character is revealed. Not in public victories, but in private consistency. You don't need to announce what you're doing next. You don't need to defend your choices. You don't need to explain your absence. Let the silence do its work. Let people underestimate you. Let them assume. Assumptions are harmless when you are focused. Your job is simple now, even if it is not easy. Wake up and do the work. Protect your mornings. Guard your focus. Say no without guilt. Choose discipline over comfort. Choose long-term respect over short-term pleasure. Do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. One day, without warning, the results will start to show. Not as a single dramatic event, but as a pattern. Your habits will be stronger. Your reactions calmer. Your standards higher. You will move differently, speak less, observe more. And people will feel that shift even if they can't explain it. When that moment comes, resist the urge to announce it. Resist the urge to explain how hard it was. Let the work speak. Let the consistency speak. Let the results speak. You don't need to tell anyone how disciplined you are. Discipline is visible in how you live. This is the moment you stop asking for permission from the world. You no longer need approval to move forward. You no longer need validation to feel secure. You no longer need noise to feel powerful. You are anchored now, grounded, focused, unmoved by distractions that once controlled you. So as you step forward, remember this. Silence is not hiding. It is choosing depth over display. Focus is not obsession. It is alignment. Discipline is not restriction. It is freedom. And the life you say you want is not built in public. It is built quietly, patiently, relentlessly. Move forward without announcing, work without witnesses, build without permission. And when the world finally notices, you won't need to say a word.